So welcome everybody to 20-minute tech break. My name is Valerie Wynn and I'm the marketing specialist at Eagle Dream Technologies. So moving forward, we'll be here every other Friday at 12:30 p.m. taking on a new topic each week. So this week we'll be discussing serverless computing with engineering team lead Hector Hernandez and software engineer team lead Scott Telle. So if you're a newcomer today, this is how it's going to kind of go. So we have 20 minutes, 4 questions, 2 experts, and so Scott and Hector will be kind of covering 4 high-level points, and then we'll open up to Q&A. So we encourage you to take 20 minutes today to learn something new, ask questions, and kind of be selfish. So without further ado, Scott and Hector, feel free to take it away.
So our questions today are all surrounding serverless technologies. So I think Hector is going to kick us off and start talking about what exactly is serverless.
So welcome everybody to this tech talk. The first thing that we're going to talk a little bit, it's what is serverless. It's a new hot term that everyone it's talking about. And serverless it's a native architecture for cloud applications. So it's now shifting the standard way for you of thinking of applications running on your existing data center and moving all of that into a native environment in AWS. There's several advantages of doing this particular kind of native technology for the cloud. So the biggest thing is that you don't have to worry about anymore about your data center. You don't have to worry about provisioning new machines. You don't need to worry about provisioning hardware. Networking, making sure that your data center is secure, that you don't have people accessing that environment that are not required or allowed to get there. Machines and environments are provisioned for you depending on what is it that you're trying to execute in the cloud. These environments are highly redundant and fault tolerant. So for your disaster recovery and for the making sure that your application is online all the time, it's one less thing that you have to worry about. Again, together with all that, I don't have any infrastructure to worry about. Everything it's managed as services on the cloud by AWS. So it's understandable that this requires a little bit of a shift in the way that we usually think about how applications are built. In many of these cases, you have your developers working closely together with system administrators and all that to make sure that whatever it is that they're building, it's going to execute correctly with the hardware that you have provisioned in your data center. And if they were to build something that it's large in scale, how is it that that particular project is going to affect your bottom line in terms of buying new equipment and provisioning everything related to that, racks and network and increasing the size of your data center storage and all of that. With this type of technology, your developers can concentrate on to building the rich application that you require without having to worry about how is it that I'm going to provision this? How is it that I'm going to have to get this into my data center environment, because there will be none in this particular case for your organization to manage. The way in which most companies will get into the serverless environment to begin with will be utilizing creating APIs is a very standard way of getting your feet wet into the serverless world. For that, AWS provides a very streamlined way of getting an API up and running that it's utilizing no servers on the cloud. And for that, you use 2 services, which are API Gateway and Lambda. They will work together to provide that rich API that it's completely native to the cloud in a serverless environment that will allow you to start getting this journey from data center to serverless cloud computing in a different environment. And I think that Scott will give you a good idea of what Lambda and API Gateway are that will help you on this journey.
Thanks, Hector. And yeah, like as Hector was saying, there's so much we can do with serverless. The biggest advantage I think that there is to cloud is that you don't have to pay a ton of money to get started on things. So prototyping things in the cloud, startups that don't have a lot of capital to be able to start building or buying all that infrastructure that Hector was talking about. So as a company, like I can start spinning up APIs or other serverless applications pretty quickly and get running in the cloud. So what is Lambda? An API gateway in this context. And the short answer is Lambda is essentially running some sort of function as like written in whatever code you want. The Lambda function is something that's executable. API gateway is essentially a managed service that provides REST endpoints into that function and that code that we want to write. Diving deeper, Lambda runs any code that's in one of the 6 supported languages. The top supported languages are out there. You can also provide your own custom runtime to be able to run code that is not supported by the 6 Lambda runtimes, but performance and certain things are going to degrade as you do that. So it's good to kind of stick to the same ones as Lambda provides as the main provided ones. And you'll get support from Java, C#, JavaScript, Python. Those are the big hitters. Go is now available as well. So a Lambda function is essentially like something that you can define and be self-contained. You want to keep your Lambda functions small. They're running in an environment that is going to be you're paying as you use it. So as long as that function's running, you're going to be paying for it. But like the charges are trivial, and you get like up to 1 million executions like for free, essentially, usually. So trying to keep that function, that code, to be something sort of very specific, isolated use case, usually connecting to some sort of database, querying some results, and returning a result back to the user. Is what you want inside of a Lambda function. Lambda is not exclusive to being run in APIs with API Gateway. I want to mention that there is a lot of function you can use in Lambdas. You can build processes that are run on a schedule. Pretty much all the AWS services have events that can trigger a Lambda function. So you can do a lot of power just built on, so the developer can function or focus on the functionality and not have to worry about where is this going to run? What server am I going to put this on? Do I have access to this? All of that is controlled through the services that AWS provides. IAM is going to secure it all. And in this specific case, we're talking about API Gateway and Lambda running APIs. So API Gateway is essentially, I like to think of it as Apache or Nginx running as a service in AWS. So you define your routes. What /users is going to return a list of users as long as it's a GET operation. If you're going to do a post on /users, you're going to provide it with data that is going to post a user to the back end and insert data into the database. Same thing with all the different methods that you would do on an HTTP REST endpoint. So API Gateway, as with all of the serverless services that we're talking about today, it's completely redundant, handles up to 100,000 of queries per second. So you don't have to think about like what the capacity of the server that you're doing. You build it and you run it. Tweak it to be optimized for your performance. As I said, with Lambda being able to operate outside of API Gateway can also run outside of Lambda. You can build an API Gateway that's going to service things in EC2 to service Kinesis. A lot of the AWS services have ways to integrate with API Gateway if you need to put REST endpoints. It's essentially made to be the routing service to some sort of backend functionality. For our serverless discussion, we're talking about it in the sense of creating APIs with API Gateway and Lambda, and it works phenomenal. I'd be pretty like silly not to mention one of the frameworks that we use a lot at Eagle Dream is serverless application model. They codename it SAM, and they have a little happy squirrel that can be their mascot. But serverless application model handles a lot of the legwork for building APIs with API Gateway and Lambda. You define in templates and YAML or JSON what you think what you need to be running in your APIs, and then you write the code. You can integrate this with code pipeline and be able to deploy these services out using continuous integration, and a growing framework here that we have to be able to build web applications pretty quickly. That's a part of a web application. Hector is going to get into dealing with the rest of it. So you have API once you get API Gateway and Lambda set up, we have REST endpoints. Hector, can you kind of talk about the rest of the web application?
Absolutely. So we're focusing our discussion here today and on serverless application towards that particular web design and web applications. And you can continue that train of thought of Lambda API Gateway and hosting web applications without having to have a server. We're used to having either IIS, Nginx, Apache, any of these particular environments that require a server, and you have your entire configuration and all that. With a serverless native model, all of your files would be stored on the S3 platform for AWS in S3 buckets. There's a little bit of a different way of thinking, like I said before, from your standard website design to a serverless environment website design. You have to pick the right technology to work in this particular frame or infrastructure. Angular and React are extremely popular right now, and pretty much everything it's getting built right now utilizing those technologies, and that mostly runs on the client. So the need to have this massive server running Nginx or Apache or any of these, it's no longer necessary. What you need is your endpoints that we cover with API Gateway will give you that rich interface and security to connect your Angular or React application to that to get that data out. S3 provides all the storage for your images, CSS files, JS files, HTML, and all of that. And then together with that, you will need a place to store all this particular information that you're sending back and forth, whether it's user orders or anything else. And to that, you will need a database environment that is something that it's robust and it's ready to grow with the application and how it grows. And for that, AWS provides RDS, which is their relational database service. In this environment, you will have, again, an AWS managed service that provides you a database, and you can have Microsoft SQL Server, you can have Postgres, you can have MySQL, you have the bigger, larger flavors of database, or you can use some of their own cloud optimized databases like Aurora DB that for certain workloads, websites or anything else work very well because they can split the way that your data is read and written and give you more throughput to your site. Again, with all of this, the growth of, you don't have to worry so much about the growth of your business. Requests are handled, more equipment is provisioned by AWS to support most of these services. For AWS, it behaves a little bit, for RDS, it behaves a little bit more, a little bit different. In RDS, you have to pick a particular size of the environment that you have, and you assign memory, but you don't have to worry about patching or anything like that on that particular environment. There's also certain levels of disaster recovery that you will be able to select on the RDS platform on what happens if a particular machine within their data center were to come down, what happens to your data? How fast can I restore it? How fast will my data be transferred? And I will not see any impact to my users on the website. So these are the bigger structures for a cloud native website design for something that you want to have in this particular technology in the cloud. Now, it's understandable that there's some businesses that are not ready to take their entire application, do a huge transformation, and go cloud native and utilize all these services. Now, AWS also offers some other services that are serverless that will help you out if you already have microservices or applications built in containers, for example, that you don't have to worry about provisioning equipment to run my containers and have all of that. And AWS will give you an environment in which you can run that, and you can do it through Fargate and ECS. And they also have a managed service for Kubernetes. So if you have applications that are built using containers, you can still utilize some serverless technologies in the cloud to manage those applications for growth. So you don't have to worry about the data center. If you're ready to make the jump into the full cloud native environment, there are services that allow to give you that. And then to give you a quick example of one of our clients, we have one client that utilizes API Gateway and Lambda and RDS to provide information and to provide data to the customers. In some of the analysis, we've had months in which API Gateway and Lambda had been called close to 30 million times. And that is a lot of data that it's managed, and the amount of money that this customer is paying for these services is very low when you compare how much money would be invested for services that service 30 million calls within a month. If you calculate that and put it into a data center, the price will be staggering. By going cloud native and serverless, the price gets compressed to something like what Scott is saying. If you are a brand new company, somebody that it's starting to get into this business of any kind of business, this will be a great opportunity and a great technology for you to get your feet wet, start, and spend very little money and provide a huge web presence for your business. So the question is, how do we get started? How do we move into this new world of serverless computing in the cloud? So Scott, you got anything for that?
Yeah, it's always a challenging question to answer, and we're short on time, but I always struggle with questions like this that are in a large forum setting. There's a lot of services out there. There's a lot of tutorials. The good news is that serverless is not necessarily a new thing anymore. We're starting to get at a point where the community is growing. There's a lot of community out there, out in Reddit and Stack Overflow. You'll find answers. AWS's documentation is really hard to navigate, but at the same time, like, they have a lot of information out there. We do have a couple of links to share. We're always happy to help as Eagle Dream. Like, we like to think of ourselves as the experts, and I think Courtney's going to start sending some links in the chat. But we have a couple of blogs that we've written about a lot of these articles, as well as a couple of tutorials that'll get you started in serverless SAM, and starting a website with AWS S3. So there's a lot of documentation out there, and you have us as experts to talk to and to bounce ideas off of. We're always happy to answer questions. If you want to reach out and get in touch with us, you have our contact information, or you wouldn't be here. But yeah, like, by all means, like, shoot us questions, and that's what this is for. So Val, I think we got some time for Q&A right now, if you want to turn it over to that.
Of course, thank you so much, Scott and Hector, for your amazing discussion. So we are opening up to Q&A right now. So please feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you, or type your question in the chat box to our panelists. So we have a couple of questions. One is from Scott, and his question is, are there any situations where Lambda is definitely a bad idea?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. As I was talking about with during the API discussion, I believe the timeout, I think it was originally 5 minutes. They've extended it to 15 minutes. So if you have any process that's going to take 15 minutes or longer, it's probably a bad idea. You can always make it work and break it up. There's a service called step functions to be able to have a workflow and a process to manage multiple Lambda functions in a row. But generally, if you're going to be running something that's going to be taking that time, you're going to be paying more for that to run than you would be paying for a server oftentimes. So often like if you have long running jobs or ETL processes that just cannot be efficiently run inside of a Lambda, we always recommend investigating other options. And doesn't mean you have to go for a server. There are still serverless options, as Hector mentioned, with Kubernetes and using Docker. There is a large variety of AWS services that are under the serverless classification to be able to help you run code that might be running a little bit longer term than Lambda. Good question, Scott.
It is also very important to remember. It's timeout. It's one aspect of it. The other one will be memory. Like Scott is saying, if you were to have an ETL process that it's going to manage gigabytes worth of information data that it's going to be transferring and churning all of that, the amount of memory that that these particular functions going to consume may be too much. So you have to measure and balance the workload that I have. Can the workload be made in steps? How much processing power that I need to complete this task?
Yep,
So,
and the last on that thought is access to physical memory or physical hard drive space. If you need something that's going to be doing a lot of image processing or video transcribing and stuff like that, like sometimes you need level to that hard drive that you want to be able to quickly read and write. And IO performance on a hard drive I mean, you don't really have a hard drive for Lambda. There is some hard drive space that's included with the container that's built, but you're not going to get the same access as you would setting up a server or using some sort of other container.
Correct. There's also the thinking about if you write things to temporary storage in a piece of your code, you have to think that code will be volatile, that functions are built and destroyed as they are executed. So if you're saving something into a temp directory, for example, that you are utilizing that as a cache element that you will want to use throughout the life cycle of your application, if that is extremely important, Lambda may not be the function for you, because if that function executes and then it eventually times out, the information that you will have on that temp directory will be gone. So the other instances will not have it. And we can get a lot deeper into how Lambda functions are provisioned within the environment, that you can have multiple of them running at the same time, and that particular temp environment is not shared among them. So that's something very important to remember.
Great, thanks for your answers, guys. So we have another question from Jess. So what is S3 used for, and is it secure?
So S3 is just an object storage, and it is certainly secure. Like everything else, you can set the level of security for that environment. AWS have encouraged you to be very mindful as to what you store within your S3 buckets and how they're accessed. You can make an S3 bucket fully public, that everybody anywhere in the world will have access to it, or you can restrict it very specifically to what you want, whether it is someone FTPing a file or someone utilizing that particular S3 bucket within an account in AWS, or Lambda communicating to it, or any of the other services, or EC2, or any service having right access to that particular location. So you can make it completely wide open, or you can go very specific as to the security of what that bucket will allow.
Nice. Okay, so it looks like we have time for one more question. So we have another one, and it says, did you say that a certain number of Lambda functions are free each month?
Yes, last we checked, and Scott correct me, I believe there is 1 million calls a month are free.
Not
And
Lambda functions, but invocations of a Lambda function, yes.
The invocation of the Lambda function. The function itself, there's no cost until the function executes.
Right.
So
yeah, and that with most of these serverless services, I hate saying serverless services, but that's what they are. Most of them, if you build them and then nobody uses them, they're free. So even like there's Aurora serverless as an option too. You can set that up to scale down and be like basically asleep until you call it. Like you can set that up to be that way, and then you're not paying anything if nobody ever hits your website and tries to access anything. So the asterisk there is like S3, you pay for storage. So I mean, it's very, very cheap, but it's pennies on the dollar. But yeah, you're paying almost nothing to run a serverless environment until people start using it and that load comes. And even when the load is there, you're generally going to be spending less for that service than you would for some sort of server, unless you really spend a lot of time in research into optimizing it and right sizing your load.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a startup company that do not have a lot of traffic and can get away with very minimal amount of calls and your information is static for the most part, the amount of money that's spent to run a website for that, for example, will be very low.
All right. Well, thank you for your questions and for your answers, Scott and Hector. Thank you for everybody for joining us this week. So we will see you at our next tech break on July 24th, featuring Kenny Chen from Pittsburgh AI and Regional Sales Manager Scott McTaggart. So we hope to see you then. Stay up to date with us. Thank you so much.